Actually, I was pretty lucky that way. I didn't go out there too much by myself. Like Grandpa Dave would come with me a lot, and so I didn't get into too much trouble. But he sure would go riding like all day long. Like it was.
They had no problem with that.
No, but I think too, like
but
when
we were
started
taught early on.
Yeah.
We were taught early to be safe, like what side you get on the horse, how you go around the back of a horse, there were certain horses we weren't allowed to, just interact with without, and if he had a new horse there that he was boarding or training, we were told.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think like for us, because we were taught at such a young age that it wasn't dangerous for us to just, hop on and go, it was just sort of like, that's just how it was. Right. Yeah. And two, I think at a point, like we weren't allowed to, well, I know myself, like, I wasn't allowed to be afraid of doing that. It was just like, get on and go. That's how it is.
Well, and then when my kids were, old enough to start, Grandpa and Granny had the farm for a bit when my kids were young, but not my two youngest kids. They weren't really around when Granny and Grandpa were starting to like sell and all that.
Yeah.
But I remember my youngest daughter going to camp and there were horses there, and I was very excited for her because she hadn't really had the opportunity to do that. I grew up that way. Yeah. And some of our older kids, they all love horses. The three oldest and the younger two just didn't have as much exposure. And so when Maddie is riding for the first time at camp and then tells me that riding a horse, she doesn't like it because it makes her seasick. I'm just like motion sick. I'm just like, what? Like, whose DNA are you? Because this doesn't make any sense. And it was like cringy for me. It's like, what are you talking about? You get back on that horse. Like,
until you're not seasick.
Another week of camp, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
It's toxic Bible camp, but just ignore that part. Just get on that horse.
Just get on the horse. Ride. Yeah, I think that was probably one of the most like fun times in my life, because it was just a part of every day. You'd go, I'd come home from school and go horseback riding, whether Granny and Grandpa were home or not, I would go, and it was okay. I mean, and too, there's a point at like our farm in BC where, Granny Carol and Grandpa had cows, and, we started riding the calves and stuff like that, and, like, doing weird stuff that way. But, like all those things, like, it's just, I would look at my kids and be like, you can't do any of that until I'm home to watch and make sure you're safe. Right. Yeah.
I remember being at a family reunion once, and they'd had it out on at a ranch somewhere, and we'd gone after church, and so I'm wearing a dress or whatever, and our kids are, they're just tootling around doing their thing, and I know the youngest, Maddie, she was about three, because Isaac, I shouldn't be saying all their names, our second youngest, he was so curious. He was always a handful. He would always like run around, but he have older siblings, older cousins, everybody's kind of around. And so they do have a pasture and a stable, and they have horses that are geared up, saddled up for trail riding, because they're going to take some people out trail riding. Not paying too much attention. I'm just in the lawn chairs visiting the adults, and the kids are all kind of doing something. I all of a sudden catch something out of the corner of my eye, and here it's little Isaac. He's about 3 years old, 4 maybe. I see him heading towards the fence, and all of these horses are on the other side of the pasture, so not like right at the fence, but they're tied up facing away from him, right? So if he goes in there, anybody comes running up, they don't know that he's coming, right? He's a little guy, and they're tied up, so it's not like they're just mingling around and can see him. I mean, horses are intuitive; they're gonna know he's coming, but it's not like they don't know him. Yeah. Whether that matters or not, I don't know. But all of a sudden, I see him go under the fence, and he's running full force for those horses. And Nobody knows this is happening. It was like slow motion. I am up and out of that chair, and I pole vaulted without the pole over that fence in my dress. I'm sure I looked crazy because I'm just gone.
Yeah.
And I'm launching myself over the fence because I'm trying to get to him before he gets to those horses. And I did, but it's like, it must have looked insane. Like the amount of like speed I got in my little Sunday flip-flops.
Right?
And like,
It's crazy
whatever.
what you can do with that sort of like adrenaline.
Yeah.
You know, you turn into an Olympic
Yeah.
athlete.
Oh my gosh. And there's something about it's different personalities, right? But something very different that happens between Trev and I when there's an emergency. There was another time our daughter was she was trying to cut brownies, and they were kind of dry, and she was using a flimsy steak knife, and she kind of flicked it not on purpose, but it stuck in the brownie and then flipped up and cut her on the arm, and there's like blood flying and stuff. But everything for me in an emergency slows right down into slow motion. I'm in action because I'm not like I'm a doer. I'm not, blood doesn't bother me, like I can just do it. But my husband goes into full-on panic mode, right? He's calling an ambulance, and I'm like, stop, just let me see this. Like, it's a teeny little cut, and yeah, it's nicked, you got to put pressure on it and stuff. But it's like, it's like a blessing that it's slow motion, because I'm thinking. I can think about what to do, and it's like 2 seconds has gone by, but I've already made a plan. So I'm very grateful for that, but he's an overreactor.
Yeah, I'm the same way, actually. Our oldest, when she was 2, my husband and her were just wrestling. Like, they were just wrestling in our room and, like, laughing and stuff like that. And my husband got a phone call, and he started to come downstairs. And as he came down the stairs, all of a sudden our neighbor was, like, pounding on our door, like it was just chaos. And I'm trying to have a nap on the couch, and all of a sudden he opens the door, and my oldest is standing there, and she's got blood running down her face. Well, she was just in our bedroom. What do you mean? Why is she outside with our neighbor? Here, she had fallen out the bedroom window, so 15 feet onto a cement pad, and broke her face. Oh my gosh. There was blood everywhere. But of course, like for me, too, everything slowed down. Now, I'm the one that drove, and my husband carried her and had her on his lap. And we got to the hospital, and, I phoned my stepmom, and her best friend came, and all that stuff. But I was like, it was all slow motion. Like, it was just, we need the keys, and he's like, oh, just grab this. And like, we both weren't freaking out, but like, clearly it was panic and chaos, I'm sure. Yeah. But yeah, so anyhow, she busted her face open, broke her jaw.
Oh my goodness.
She was spitting teeth out for a week, and we get to the hospital, and she's laying there, and she's got this tiny little cut on her thumb. And she's like, I need a Band-Aid for this. Meanwhile, they're trying to stitch her chin up. And then she's like, when I get home, I'm going to go ride my bike. And I'm thinking, like, you're lucky to be alive, kid. Like, it was just, yeah. But yeah, that was, it wasn't the last time she had done something stupid like that. But yeah, like, who would have known?
We've been oh my gosh. We've been so fortunate that we haven't had any, like, major accidents with our kids. I remember being out at the lake, and my sons are 3 years apart. So when the older one is like 11, and the younger one's 8, it's a big kind of a like life skills gap in there because they haven't learned the same things. And so our older son, he had been out at the lake, like around the campfire, and knew how to use a little hatchet, and he'd been taught. He was pretty careful. And so this was the day we were going to teach our younger son how to be safe with a little, like just a little hatchet that their grandpa had given them, and, to help make, kindling or whatever. And I'm explaining to Isaac how to use this little axe, and like you have to be safe or whatever. And all of a sudden Nate says, our other son says, I think I hurt myself. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he says, I think I cut myself. And I thought he was kind of joking because he was really calm, and I thought maybe he was like helping teach by making a joke or something. And I look at him, and he's already very pale, but he was going really pale. And I look at his leg. There's no blood or anything because the cut is so deep on his, like, below his knee that it looks like a canoe. Like, it's just...
Ooh.
I won't go into detail, but it's that deep that it's not bleeding right away.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at it, and all of a sudden he sits down, and I can see the blood draining from his face. Now the wound is starting to bleed, and we're out at the lake. And so my mom is up on the deck, which is, 40, 50 feet away. I don't know how far, but I start yelling at her, get me a towel, get me a towel. And I send Isaac up running, get me a towel, because I'm waiting for this thing to start gushing, but it's deep, and I need to make sure. And they're scrambling up there because she doesn't really know what I'm saying or what's happened because nobody's freaking out near the fire. But I'm just like, get me a towel, get me a towel. And she gives, I don't know why she did this, but she gives, my mom is a nurse, like she knows better. But she gives Isaac like this filthy, dirty beach towel. Like it was like filthy. And I'm like, what are you? And then, like, you have superhuman strength, right? Because Nate must have been, he had to be 80 pounds or something. He was 12 years old, 11, 12 years old. But the van is across the yard and, like, quite far. And I literally pick him up and take him. And turned out it was pretty deep, and he had to have a few stitches, and he's got a pretty big scar now. But, yeah, it's like all of a sudden you're doing things you never imagined.
Oh, yeah. Well, just all sorts of stuff kicks in. Yeah.
Yeah.